Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Boston Town Area Committee. My name is Councillor Barry Pierpoint, and to my right is, I'm chairman of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Patsy Marson, and she's my vice chair. Moving on to housekeeping rules as follows. The restroom facilities are available for ladies on this floor and halfway down the main stairwell for the gentlemen. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everyone out of the building to the nearest fire safety point in the car park. I think we've got some brollies just in case. Would all persons addressing this meeting please do so through the microphone system at all times, as this is being recorded. Please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who is deemed to breach this requirement will be warned as to refrain. If the behaviour persists, they will be asked to leave the meeting. We now move on to this part one of the evening's meeting, and we'll firstly address the preliminary items. I'd like to welcome to my left Bo, who's a new clerk for the BTAC, and she's also part of the Democratic Services team. Welcome, Bo. And you're going to give us the details of apologies.
Yes, Chairman. We receive apologies from Councillors Alison Aston, Paul Gleeson, and Lina Savikian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I hope you're settling in all right and enjoying the role. Well, I'm going to sign the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 1st of August. Do I have members' permission to sign the minutes, please? Lovely. Thank you. Just sign them on the bottom of here. Yeah, that's it. Lovely. There you are. Thank you very much. Update on the actions from the minutes of the last meeting. I'll ask Phil Perry to update us on various activities. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Chairman. There are 4 updates, and I can confirm that a site visit has now been scheduled for the Green Flag Working Group to Booton Park in Lincoln on Friday, the 18th of October. The return report on the footway lighting will come to the next meeting, ensuring that it is fully detailed to allow members to make any decisions should they so wish. I would also confirm that following concerns raised in respect to rust sleepers raised by Councillor Alison Austin on Garfitts Lane, I would advise that I have received notification this morning that the person sleeping in the tent has now left the site, and the rust sleepers intervention team are continuing to liaise with the remaining sleepers on that site. And finally, Duncan Hollingworth is now in negotiations with Anglian Water, following members' wishes at the last meeting that he meets with them. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Phil. It was very kind of you. Right. To receive any declarations of interest from members, are there any declarations? Councillor Izard.
Just a minor one. I'm trustee of the little community club, which is listed in the agenda tonight. The local community club, I should say.
We'll note that. Thank you very much. Anyone else that want to make it? Councillor Dorian.
It's not a declaration of interest. It was on the minutes, Mr. Chairman. It was to ask if there was any update on the lighting of the car parks, and that was raised by Councillor Gleeson, wasn't it, the last meeting? Did we resolve that, or is that in the footway lighting report? Oh, thank you.
Yes, just to confirm that is due to come back in the footway lighting report. We're asking for a complete report at the next meeting.
Any other declarations? Public questions. Do we have any public questions? And if so, your advisors?
We don't have any questions, Chairman.
We don't. Does anyone attending the public gallery wish to address the meeting? Not tonight. I see we've got some free hugs there, by the way. That looks very, very entertaining. Thank you very much. All for that sort of stuff. Good community stuff, that is. Thank you. Right, so that concludes the preliminary items. Let's move on to part 2 of this evening's agenda. Our first item of business this evening is the BTAC Small Grant Scheme, which is on page 7 of your documents. This has been tabled purely for committee to note the recommendations from the Small Grants Committee. I'll ask Phil to present that to you.
Thank you, Chair. The BTAC Grants Working Group met on the 3rd of September to review and make decisions on applications submitted for consideration in round 2 of this financial year to both the BTAC Small Grant Scheme and the BTAC Empowering Healthy Communities Grant Schemes. The table is laid out on page 8 of the papers, and the group agreed to the submissions in full. So this report recommendation is that the committee endorse the decisions made by the BTAC working group in respect of eligible applications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Everybody all in favour of that? Just for noting, are we all happy with the BTAC Small Grants Committee, what they've recommended and taken forward? Right, thank you very much. All noted. Is there a question, Councillor Dorian? That's okay. Right, so we're on to the next report. Is the
No, Chairman, I think it is this one. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I missed you. So do you want to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yes.
Sorry, is it my turn? Thank you. No, it is on table 1 on page 8 and over the page on page 9. I just noticed that 2 of the grants are going towards Fidel House, which is a fantastic resource and facility. I was also conscious of the fact that a lot of our funding is going out and it's only Q1, and or is this the end of Q1? I was just worried that we have people in the community that really know where to access grant funding, and I was just worried about running out before the end of the year.
I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think we look at those who sit on the grant committee, and there's 2 or 3 of us around the table here. We look at these applications very carefully. Lots of questions are asked. Some of the grants are not necessarily approved there and then because we need further information. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think there's going to be an issue of running out, quite frankly. And I notice we are putting out quite a lot of publicity about small grants for people to apply. And we do try and encourage, smaller groups to do that. The Fidel House one was 2 separate projects, and they put them in separately. And bear in mind that Maddie has to go through the process of checking them all out first and go through all the normal preliminaries before she submits them to us. So we're quite happy with what she's done, and we're happy with that. So I understand where you're coming from, and I'm happy to say that I don't think we will. If we do. Right, Councillor Woodliff.
To be Appendix 1, Table 2. One thing it says that it's going to be circulated in the meeting. So do we have that or?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, our apologies that, but that because it was agreed in full, we've same paper. We've just kept it on the paper we have in front of us. It's all there. So had there been any discrepancies, then we would have submitted a separate table. No, I do apologise that we didn't bring that in this evening.
It's slightly misleading, but it isn't misleading. It's all in the report as opposed to a separate sheet of paper with the details on it. It's there in front of you. Okay. Are you happy with that? Trust me.
Say, oh yeah, that's right. That's all right. I trust you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Woodley. Right. Any more questions on the BTAC small grants? I'm very quite happy with what we've done, and you've all are happy with what we've said, and we're going to move on. The next report is the BTAC financial position is at the 30th of June, which is on page 13 of the agenda. And at this point, I'd like to welcome 2 new members of PSPS. We've got our BTAC Finance Officer, Jenny Mackin, and we've also got Finance Officer Carl Holland. I'd like them just to say hello and introduce themselves first of all, and just before you present the report, just say hello to everybody and tell us who you are. What you're doing. Go on, Jenny, over to you. Make sure it's green. That's right.
Yeah, hello, I'm Jenny Mackin and I've come from LCC. I started on the 5th of August at PSPS, so yeah, still learning a lot whilst I've been here, but yeah, I'm enjoying it so far.
Good. Carl?
Yep, Carl Holland. I've had a career in finance and audit for over 30 years. And I've arrived from Kingsland and West Norfolk, and I can honestly say all local authorities do things differently, but brilliantly. Thank you.
Like that one. Well done. So, Jenny, we're going to ask you to present the report for us, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm here to present the BTAC Quarter 1 Finance Report and the forecasted spend against the 2024-25 budget. Outlined in Appendix A are the details of the income and expenditure relating to BTAC for Quarter 1 2024-25, along with any identified variances. The forecast position is an overspend of £36,258, which has been offset by a contribution from reserves to ensure a break-even position. The overspend is made up of minor cost variances in business rates and electricity, along with a small amount of additional income in Mayfair. The overspend includes the efficiency savings target of £36,455, which is yet to be identified. The opening balance of the BTAC reserve on the 1st of April 2024 was £207,611. After taking into account the Section 151 officer's recommendation of a minimum reserve of £70,000, the available usable reserves are £137,611. Details of the use of the reserves for 2024-25 are outlined in Appendix A. The final forecast balance of reserves following the detailed spend outlined in the appendix is £77,552. Also outlined in Appendix A are the further details stating the basis of calculations for any recharge costs to BTAC, as requested by the committee at the previous meeting. For example, recharge costs in relation to repairs and maintenance are budgeted based on historic costs, but the outturn is based on the actual costs for the year. Recharge costs relating to finance support services are based on estimated percentages of staff time, and any personnel support service costs are calculated based on FTEs. Please see Appendix A for all the other basis of calculations of the recharge costs. The recommendation for the Boston Town Area Committee is for members to note the financial position as at the 30th of June 2024 and the reserve position as at the 30th of June 2024. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Are there any questions on Jenny's report? Right. So, Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jenny. It's probably me just not understanding, even though I do have a GCSE in maths and arithmetic, which was page 14, section 2, 2.1. So you said that the opening balance of the reserve on the 1st of April was 207,000, and then the closing balance on the reserve on the 30th of June was 77,000. But then on 3.1, our usable reserves are 137,611. So it's probably me just not understanding. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, so the opening balance is the 207,611. We then have to take the minimum reserve recommendation from the Section 151 officer of the 70,000. So the available usable reserves are the 137,611,000. And then documented on the Appendix A then states the detailed spend on those reserves, which comes to the figure of the £77,522. Is that clear? Yeah.
Any other questions for Jenny? Councillor Izard.
Good evening, Jenny, and welcome to the team. Just really for my benefit, so if you look at the charts and we've got events costs, for example, when you have an overspend, who approves that the money comes out from the BTAC reserves? Does it go by a chair or the portfolio holder when you need to claim money from the reserves when you've overspent?
So I believe it would have to go through the Section 151 officer in the end. I'm not 100% sure. Is that correct? Yeah, so it would all have to go through her.
So it's never passed through this committee for us to agree to the spending of our reserves. It's just done through 151 officer, yes?
I think so.
I'm going to say this to all the people of this committee. You're correct what you say, and I think we should have it brought to this table, because I think people are doing things with numbers and changing things, and we're sitting here as a committee of people responsible for BTAC, and we're not sure what's happening behind the scenes. And I think that you're quite right in what you're saying, and I agree with you. I think we should make a note that in future, if we can have things brought to this table to see what is happening, because I am not happy how things are managed for BTAC budget on the basis that I don't really understand how some of these things occur. And I think, I have to be honest with everybody in this table. And I've had a meeting with Carl and Jenny prior to this meeting today, because they're both new and they haven't been here for more than a couple of minutes, and they've been given this task to do. And as much as, they've done a very good job, and I can appreciate it, but there are questions. I'm going to go through the questions. I want to share it with you all. Some of the questions that I have about the Appendix A on the budget, because I want qualifying information, and I haven't got qualifying information in some of the charges or percentages of what's happening. It doesn't qualify enough for me as a chairman of this committee to say that I'm happy to tick this off and say them, it's fine. Jenny and Carl understand where I'm coming from, because I'd like to have a budget that I can thoroughly understand. It's all got backed up by facts, figures and information, and that way we can then sit here comfortably as a group and we can sign off a budget. So let me just go through a few ideas with you. So if you look at the first page, and I said to Jenny, for example, repairs and maintenance on the public convenience, it says budget based on historic costs. Well, yes, if you go through the line 1, 2, 3, 4, it says premises, and it's line 4, repairs and maintenance, it says, and it gives you a breakdown of the different things. But on the information that we're actually looking at, it says budget based on historic, the first column, budget based on historic R&M costs. Well, I don't know what the historic costs are, and I don't understand how those historic costs have been arrived at. And I need to have that information for me to understand. It's all right. And the same with the transport one. It talks about vehicles and car allowance, but it doesn't. I don't understand how the numbers have been arrived at. And what I want to understand is the total cost of the council is X, and we've given a percentage of 10%, 20%, or 30% Y to BTAC to pay for it. And if we think that percentage sounds about right, we can say, yes, we're happy with that. If it's 75%, we say, well, why are we paying 3/4 of the council's whatever? That's where I'm trying to get to. And I've had a word with our two colleagues here. They understand what I'm saying, and I think you're quite happy with what I'm saying, aren't you? So if you look at the one that says third-party payments, it says ground maintenance. It is based on estimated allocation of service overheads from ground maintenance team. Well, my question is how, what percentage, what's the total cost of that, and how do we arrive at 4,150 quid? Where's that figure come from? And I need it qualifying so I can understand that we are paying 4,150 pounds and it's the correct amount. Bearing in mind, we found out that BTAC is paying for lighting in the car park, which we have no income from. You want to say something?
Yeah, only point I want to mention is rather a comment really. I've read Jenny's report. It's very nice. But the only thing I want to say is the description, as you are stating, it should be clear to understand, because not everybody know the numbers, what exactly it is for. So the last column you have there, if it's more description there, so that, if you have any doubts, we can ask a question. At the moment, we don't know anything about that. That's one. Number two is, I've noticed this approved budget and the forecast outturn. It's same. So on what basis we are calculating that outturn, forecast outturn? And is it same all the time? What's that exactly?
I take your point, and I'm happy with what you're saying. If you go to support services, it's about nearly halfway down. It says finance in there, and it says based on estimate of staff time. Well, I don't know what the staff time is, and I don't want to just agree to £5,661, not knowing where the staff times come from and what percentage of staff time this is. And this is the sort of detail I think we need to understand and have at this committee meeting so that we can quite comfortably and confidently accept the budget where we are. At the moment, I'm in the dark. And I'm sure most of my colleagues around this table are in the dark, I think. Unless anybody can tell me that they fully understand how all these numbers have been arrived at, because I certainly do. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree with you, what you have said, and I totally agree with Councillor Izard. I mean, it's our money, it's BTAC. We should make the decision here, not somewhere else. And then we get 37,000 overspent. We would like to know where it was overspent so we can control our budget. So that's one of the things. There is things which is, I just want some clarification, Jenny, and welcome to the team. And hopefully will not be your probably first difficult evening with us. So I just want to, if you can clarify for me, if we go to page 1, Appendix A, we have transport car allowances. Then we go on page 2. There is again car allowances. Then there is again transport car allowances 3 times. I mean, what's the reason behind that? I mean,
it comes under different. It comes under different sections of the budgeting. That's why it's like that. It's. I mean, I hear what you say. I'm going to stop you there because it's different parts of the budget where the costs have arrived from. They haven't lumped it all into one. At least they've broken it down into different categories of, you know, the outcomes, expenditures and costs and things. So I'm happy with that bit. I know where you're coming from, but trust me, I'm happy with that bit, what they've got, how it's broken down under different categories of cost. Yeah, carry on, by all means. Carry on.
More, just not, you know, just remarks, basically. We have on page 3 income, and then we have hire of space for events and events income. So the hiring is not an income, that's an expenditure. So it should be on something we spend money on. And the income from that should be on the income. So I think it's just a bit of confusion.
There's also some premises I noticed that's on Mayflower, 16 Mayflower. Now, I'd be interested to know what these premises are, because I don't know whether BTAC's got anything stored in there, or is it to do with any equipment, or is it any cleaning materials, or is it a vehicle? But I'd like that investigated, please, because, you know, you're talking about, you know, considerable amount of money in there, and I need to understand what is it we're renting an industrial unit for, and what we're putting inside the industrial unit, and, you know, why we got an industrial unit. I mean, does anybody know why BTAC's got an industrial unit? We do.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, we have the BTAC offices, which are 2 employees who work for BTAC. They use this unit to store and work on the benches, bins, and all the work they do for the BTAC area.
Well, if that was said that on this sheet of paper, I wouldn't be asking that question. But that's the sort of information I think that we need to use. Any more questions? Councillor Gilbert.
Very much, yeah. I mean, like some others, I'm not a great mathematician, but when I was looking at these figures, what struck me about them particularly is that the approved budget and the forecast outturn seem to be the same, pretty much in every single column. Yet we do have an actual spend, which often shows some kind of variance to, if you multiply it by 4, i.e. you multiply it by the 4 quarters, could give some hint as to whether we're moving in a adverse or a positive direction. So I just wonder whether or not the forecast outturn could be moderated or modified to actually show some actual figures that relate to either an increase in costs or a decrease. I think that's particularly important given the fact that we spoke towards the end of last year about the need to dip into our reserves. And clearly the comment was made that we need to be very mindful of the position with our reserves. And so I think we need to have some real-time data as best we can get it from some of the figures that we've got available to us.
Thank you very much. Well said. I understand where you're coming from. Any other questions? Councillor Woodliff.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose really I was just looking at allotments, although very good at allotments, but anyway, allotments on which page is it now? Is it page 17, isn't it? I noticed that on allotments, I'll find it again.
On the budget sheet, or we're talking about in the
Yeah,
report?
That's right. I think it is. Allotments, supplies and services, development budget. It's £255, I think. That's right, is it? And it says development projects budget not used in recent years. So why do we have it? What's that about?
In the budget, we'll never use it.
Yeah, drop it down some
Repairing
allotments, you know.
Under allotments.
Yeah, supplies and services.
All right. Let me just stop you there, Councillor Woodliff, and I'm going to let Carl come in and he wants to say a few words. Okay.
Excuse me. So when we're setting the budget, it is an estimate in many cases, and we do refer to historic actuals and try to reflect that in our budget setting for the forthcoming year. So here we are, and this is the report at Q1. So we're being transparent here. We've asked, well, we're not asking the question. We've noted that 255 possibly is not required. So we've noted it there for your information, being transparent. As we go into Q2, we'll hopefully get some more confirmation whether that's going to be needed or not. And then we'll report that back to you, what we're proposing as a result of that, bearing in mind that you're all asking that decisions come to this committee. But what I would just like to clarify is that the budget is an estimate. This is only Q1 data. So as we get Q2, we get a bit more confident about those actuals to which you are referring. And we'll be more confident in uplifting. Some of these costs are typically seasonal. So during the summer season, dependent on the weather, it can vary, reflecting that. So Q2 is typically when we get a bit more confident about varying that forecast. So you'll have to bear with us in that sense, but we are trying to be as transparent as we possibly can, given that this is only Q1. And the budget is an estimate. It's not guesswork, but it's based on logic and assumptions of historic data. So it won't be accurate, but when we're estimating electricity costs, for example, and then the actual bills come in, and we all know that the unit rates for electricity can go up and very rarely down. We're flagging that is the actual cost so far this year into Q1. And as I say, we talk to the relevant service managers, and if it was extraordinarily different, we would be asking, well, why is it extraordinarily different? What's going on there? And we would narrate that here, but it's very early in the year in terms of this is Q1, 3 months into the year. It will be far more meaningful when we get to Q2. And that's all I would add on that.
Thank you. Councillor Gosh.
Again, a comment about the report. If you go to page number 19, when there is no variance, it should be 0 rather than hyphen, because you have used 0 in total events in some of the variances. If there is no variance, it should be 0.
Thank you. Councillor Dorian? Sorry, you're to go back and...
I mean, we are looking at this, and a couple of the comments we're getting is that it's not a clear read, and there's some inconsistency in the use of the hyphens. So absolutely, thank you. We take that on board.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Dorian?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to say I don't. I'm not entirely sure where you are coming from. I don't agree with everything you've said. I think that you shouldn't come at this with an air of suspicion. You've set this budget. The committee set the budget, and it's entirely in your gift to ask for additional narrative and commentary. It's entirely in your gift to get your lead officer to have all this information primed and ready for you. That's what our officers are there to do. So I don't like this air of suspicion. I don't think it's warranted. I don't think it's necessary. And I think to the point that Councillor Izard raised about events, that particular incident happened when a major sponsor pulled out in a matter of days before the event was due to happen. And a decision had to be made by the S151 whether to cancel the event or go ahead. Now, I have to apologise, I actually sanctioned that as well, but I did think the funding was coming out of the general fund rather than the BTAC budget. I can speak to Christine about remedial action there, happy to do that, Chair. But I think going forward, if the committee so minded to want any urgent decision to be made, that it is inappropriate to call the whole committee in, that they delegate authority to you, Mr Chairman, in liaison with the portfolio holder for finance and the Section 151 officer to make that decision going forward. So I think that's entirely appropriate that you are involved in that, but not to bring the whole committee together, because that's unworkable. Thank you, Chair.
I hear what you say, Councillor Dorian. First of all, there's no suspicion or any sort of issues that we're not sort of judging the way this has been done. I think it's more the fact we want qualification of information, I think, because I am very fussy to make sure that I understand what I'm signing off and where all the money's going. And, you know, it is quite a big budget at the end of the day. And I've spoken to, just to sort of tie this up, I've spoken to both Jenny and Carl, and I've said to them that I would like them to produce a more detailed budget by January, so that we can use the January information to set the budget for 25-26. Because at the moment, you know, I'm not happy with this, and it's okay, but it doesn't give me the comfort and the confidence that I understand how all this has arrived at. And you know, as much as I appreciate what you said, I can't sit here and just accept all these numbers without something behind it to explain to me how we've arrived at it. Both my two colleagues there are quite happy with what I've said. We've agreed that you will come back to us in January with what I think then will be almost a budget that we've got sorted out. We're going to meet in the middle of January, Phil, myself, and the two colleagues here, and we're going to put something together and agree it. And if you want to come into that as well, you can do. It's up to you.
I agree with what Anne said, because I don't know how it will, how it should work, because this is a committee. It's not a different organization. It's not a parish, you know. So 151 have that authority to take that decision. But obviously, if you, as a chairman, if you want to get involved in that decision, yeah, it's more than happy, I think. It's a good way of doing things, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Even if the 151 officer wants to make decisions, I think the courtesy of them notifying us what decisions they're going to take. Otherwise, we sit here and are we valid at what we're doing? I would say to myself, if people are doing things behind the scenes and we're not notified, I would certainly not want to sit in this chair going forward, because I would feel either undermined, or I don't know what's going on, or why am I chairing a committee that somebody else is doing something to it without my knowledge. That's how I feel. And, you know, I'm very strong about that, because my attitude is, if I'm doing something like this, I need to fully understand what I'm doing. And if I don't, I don't do it. Simple as that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I say, I apologise. I sanctioned that as leader, and I apologise that you were not consulted. So with that being said, I'm happy, if it's appropriate, and I'll take the leader officer's advice, to add a recommendation that the chairman of the committee, or in his absence, the vice chair of the committee, is notified when any deviation from the budget is taken in an urgent manner. And I'd look for a seconder on that.
Councillor Gilbert?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. I just wonder whether or not there are any issues in respect of the Constitution, which establishes some of these arrangements, and whether we're not doing it. We maybe need to look at that, look at the Constitution as a way of ensuring that some of these changes that we've discussed, and we've discussed more than just this change over the course of the last 18 months, whether they need to be embedded constitutionally rather than just accepted and adopted by this group, this committee.
Yes, I think we'll need to make sure that we fully understand what our role is, to be honest, and what authority or not authority does this committee have, so that we can, you know, we're working on the right lines. you know, I'm quite happy to, you know, to look at that if we're doing something outside the scope of this committee. But all I'm saying is to everybody in this room, I need to understand as a chairman what I'm actually signing up to. And if it doesn't make sense to me, then I'm not happy. And I think I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that, because we can sit here and tick numbers off until they come out, you know, until the cows come home. But if we don't know what we're ticking them off for or what they mean, then it's meaningless. And that's not something I'm not prepared to do, a meaningless exercise just to tick a box. But anyway, let me just say that the two colleagues have agreed to go back and sort that out for January. I think we'll have to take this position as it is on here, I think, as it stands at the moment. Are we happy with that, or do you want to amend the wording? Because I've got here, the financial position is the 30th of June. Are we happy to accept that, or do we want to say something different? Yeah.
Well, the reason I moved the additional recommendation, Chair, is that I'm conscious that we've got the Christmas festival coming up before Carl and Jenny bring back the report in January. So I'm just cognizant of if there is another urgent matter that we've documented the fact that committee wishes you to be consulted and have the matter discussed.
So where do we want to leave the situation on this budget? Are we happy to leave it as it stands for the time being on the basis?
An additional recommendation to item number 1, and Councillor Gilbert kindly seconded it. If you I've moved the recommendation, have an additional item added to it.
Okay.
Happy to move the whole recommendation if you wish.
Are you happy with that? Everybody happy with that? Yeah, let's take a vote then. All in favour of the recommendation? Or do you want me to do the recommendation again, or you? I think we're okay with that. Thank you. All right. Right, so finally, we'll talk about the work programme on page 21 of your document. We've got 3. Sorry, are you going to do that, Phil, for us?
I can do, Chair. Sorry. Yeah. So the next meeting is the 28th of November, where we have the BTEC Small Grants Round 3. There will be the events budget report and budget setting, and the footway lighting report. Just on the 30th of January, of course, we will have the budget setting and financial position added to the programme. Thank you, Chair.
Right, so I think that concludes. Oh, do you want to have a quick word? Go on then.
If Phil Perry will be kind enough and add probably a list of our inventory and the value of the inventory. Can you do that? Because we would like to know what we have. We've been asking for it, probably this is the 3rd time. Second. We must, yeah.
Well, what Councillor Dunn is asking is, and I think it's been asked before, we'd like to know what BTEC actually owns and what the valuation of the.
There is equipment. Yes.
Before, okay.
I mean, there is few items we have, and I think we have some rent coming income as well. So, is that correct?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the elements in the budget, that's when the report comes back in January. We need to have the breakdown of what's included within that as part of the detail being asked for. So that shouldn't be a problem at all.
Please.
When we shared the inventory of the land and assets that the BTEC cover within, you remember a few meetings ago. The only other aspect that we can consider and talk to the grounds team is about playground equipment and elements that are within the parks and grounds. So we can ask them to list that out as well.
Yes, by all means.
Because I'm pretty sure that BTEC has bought some materials and they bought some equipment a while ago, so we should have them somewhere. I mean, or I don't know, they're broken or.
Councillor Woodliff.
Well, as I understand it, we're a committee of the Borough Council. So everything is owned by the Borough Council. We don't have any property. We have an income because we have our own precept, but actually the money itself is held by the Borough Council. So we don't own anything. Okay. We have responsibilities agreed with, I think, the cabinet basically, as to what we will fund. But I don't think we have any legal liability really. It's an understanding. It's a gentleman's agreement that we will support the Borough Council and support the cabinet and so on. No, we're anonymous, aren't we? Really?
I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I accept what you say.
We're mere quango. I'm sorry. I apologise.
It's all right. Any other questions at all before we wrap up? Anybody? No? Thank you very much for tonight's meeting. We do appreciate it. Safe journey home. Be careful of the weather. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you. Cheers.